for your indulgence.
Thank you. The gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cooper, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm delighted to hear the bipartisan praise of our public health workers, our professionals, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will heed your good advice. First question, can U.S. doctors or patients order some of these tests from South Korea?
Important question when was asked by the chairwoman about the difference. The difference between the South Korean test and our test is they would have to go through our regulatory process in the FDA to get approval to use that.
So the answer is no.
Currently, no, under the regulatory issue.
Okay. What are the names of these South Korean companies or enterprises that offer these tests?
The basic difference, Congressman, is when CDC developed our test, if you give me a second, we developed to make sure it could work on the platforms that we'd put in all the public health labs. Those platforms were based on our flu surveillance. So we used a technique called thermocycling, which is not a high throughput. What the Koreans have done is they've used a high throughput platform, which is now being done in New York at the Wadsworth Lab, and is now it's being worked on by LabCorp and Quest to bring it in. So it's a different platform. Roche is really the company, I think, I'm not sure, but I can get back to you, which was the platform that they used. It's a high throughput, allows many, many, many tests to be done at a single time.
So the South Koreans used a Swiss company, or wherever Roche is headquartered, to supply the need.
I'll get back to you on the specifics, sir, to make sure I don't misinform you.
So American doctors or patients will have to Google this to try to find out, because we're not eliciting this information today.
We will get back to you, but I will tell you LabCorp and Quest are up aboard, and most American doctors either use one of those two lab services for their clinical practice.
Well, LabCorp and Quest are wonderful companies, but still we are behind South Korea in terms of making testing available. So how do we solve this gap?
What's going on right now, rather than the public health platform that we used, if we had developed the test on the Korean platform, none of our public health labs could have done it because they don't have the instrumentation. So right now the private sector and certain labs have begun to transfer that to the what we call the high throughput. And so you're going to see those high throughput, the same technology is going to be approved in the United States and used by different private sector groups.
So now finally we're turning toward what you call high throughput, and that may be from Roche, it may be from somewhere else, or maybe at the Wadsworth Lab now in New York, but finally one day we will have it.
Yeah, I would try not to use the word finally. I guess I'm not making myself clear. In my role to get it in the public health labs, we built it on a platform that they had the instrumentation.
What's the name of the company that supplied the faulty reagent?
Well, it was, you should be careful. The third control did not perform the way we wanted it to perform. There's two possibilities. One, that reagent at that time, there was a contamination. But the other possibility is biologic, that these primer pairs folded on themselves and it didn't perform. It's been corrected, and the new tests
substandard, faulty, whatever name you want to use. What's the name of that company?
Well, it was produced by IDT, you know, initially, and we've worked with them to correct that and CDC together.
Are there any plans to have drive-through testing in America so that we do not panic emergency rooms when people come in and cough?
Not at this time. I think we're trying to maintain the relationship between individuals and their healthcare providers.
That's very interesting as a response. So the professional monetary relationship comes before public health.
No, that was not my point. Maybe Dr. Fauci wants to comment. My point was in able to assess risk and the appropriateness that these individuals get the proper care, we believe that this is something that still has value to be dealt with within the setting of clinical medicine. But I'll ask Tony to comment.
It's exactly what you said. It's trying to preserve, not anything about monetary. That's really not a consideration at all. It's to try and get people to at least on a telephone call basis to be able to phone their physicians ahead of time and say, I believe I have a situation. The physician would probably say, stay at home, and give them the instructions of how to get a test. But so it's the relationship between the patient and the physician. I have no indication at all of financial on that.
Well, most Americans don't really have a doctor. they rely on the ER to help, and people are panicking, ERs apparently. I see that my time has expired. I wish I had more.